Once upon a time, in a peaceful village nestled deep in a forest, there lived a brave little girl named Amira. She was only 11 years old, but her courage and cleverness were known to all. The village was surrounded by tall trees and winding rivers, and the people who lived there were kind, hard-working, and always looking out for one another. One morning, the village elders gathered at the central square with worried faces. They whispered in hushed voices, and soon word spread that something terrifying was lurking near their home. Deep in the forest, there had been rumors of strange creatures that roamed in the dark shadows and made frightening sounds at night. People said they had seen glowing eyes in the woods, and some had even disappeared without a trace. The village had always been safe, but the elders knew that the time had come to act. They sent their bravest men to explore the woods, but none of them returned. Fear settled like a heavy fog over the village, and the people began to worry. "What will we do?" they whispered, clutching their children close. Amira overheard the villagers' worries and, feeling a sense of urgency, decided she couldn't just sit and wait for the unknown to come to them. She loved her village and the people in it too much to let them suffer. That evening, after her parents went to bed, Amira snuck out of her house with only a small satchel filled with food and her trusty flashlight. She had heard stories of brave adventurers, and she was determined to be one of them. As she walked into the forest, the moonlight barely pierced the thick canopy of trees. The air felt heavy, and the wind whispered in strange, eerie ways. Amira kept her senses sharp, listening for anything unusual. After walking for what felt like hours, she came across a clearing where the moonlight shone brightly. It was there that she noticed something odd, a strange, glowing blue flower blooming in the middle of the field. She knelt down to examine it, wondering how something so beautiful could exist in such a dark place. Suddenly, a loud, terrifying roar echoed through the trees, and the ground trembled beneath her feet. Amira's heart raced, but she stood her ground. She was scared, yes, but she couldn't let fear control her. The roar grew louder and closer, and from the shadows emerged a massive creature, its eyes glowing bright yellow. Its body was covered in dark, spiky fur, and it had sharp claws that scraped against the ground. Amira felt a chill run down her spine. She knew she couldn't defeat the creature with strength alone, but she remembered something her grandmother had told her: bravery isn't about fighting, it's about finding the right way. Without thinking twice, she grabbed the glowing blue flower and ran toward the creature. She held it up high, and to her amazement, the creature stopped in its tracks, its glowing eyes focusing on the flower. Slowly, it approached her, its large form looming over her tiny frame. For a moment, Amira's heart pounded in her chest as the creature sniffed the flower. Then, to her surprise, it lowered its head and seemed to relax. Amira took a deep breath and stepped back, keeping her eyes on the creature. She could see now that it wasn't as terrifying as it had first seemed. In fact, it was just confused, lost in the forest, far from where it belonged. The glowing flower, she realized, was a special plant that calmed wild creatures. It was rare and could only be found in the deepest parts of the forest. The creature, now calm and docile, seemed to understand that Amira meant no harm. With a gentle movement, it turned and began to walk back into the forest, disappearing into the shadows. Amira stood there for a moment, catching her breath. She had done it. She had saved her village from the terrifying creature without ever having to fight it. She turned and made her way back home, the glowing flower still in her hand. When Amira returned to the village at dawn, the villagers were astonished to see her. She told them her story, and they all gathered around her, amazed by her bravery and quick thinking. They realized that the creature hadn't been a threat, but a lost soul in need of guidance. From that day on, Amira became a legend in her village. She wasn't just the brave girl who had saved them, she was the reminder that courage wasn't about fighting fear, but understanding it and finding a way to bring peace. And so, the village remained safe, and the forest, once feared, became a place of wonder and mystery, all thanks to the brave heart of one young girl.